I'm sending these autographed pictures to some of my subscribers. Stay tuned to the end of this video to find out how you can get your hands on one. Hey everyone, welcome back to my YouTube channel. I hope you had fun watching the Workout Wednesday where I sprinted 20 meters on the fly. And also, it seems like everyone enjoyed Monday's video where I outlaid all of my high school personal bests in everything from 400 up to 5K cross country. That video is doing really well. I'll link it right here. And that got me thinking, maybe you guys might want to see my progression in the 800 from my first year running it all the way to my very peak in 2012 when I ran 142.95 for 800 meters at the Olympic final, and then kind of how my career went from there. So today I'm actually going to walk you through that progression, tell you some of the stories about how I improved, what it was like running in the Olympic Games, and really just plot those points for you so you can see that transition. I mean, this was over 12, almost 15 years of running the 800. So I'm going to tell you kind of how I felt about it. I'm going to actually put these times down on a graph so that you can see the plot of my personal best, my season's best throughout my life. But I'm also going to show you some pictures and tell you some stories to spice it up so it's not just you and me staring at an Excel spreadsheet. So speaking of the Excel spreadsheet, let's pull it up right now. All right, and here is that Excel spreadsheet. So let me explain to you how I built this out. On the x-axis, I have years from 2000 up to 2017. Why? Well, I started running the 800 in the year 2000, and I had my last year as a competitive runner in the year 2017. Makes sense, right? On the y-axis, I have numbers going from 135 up to 160. In order to plot these times the way I wanted to down to 100th of a second, I actually had to put it. So let me show you my first data point, 2000, the year 2000, and the time is 157.00. So just so you know, that means I ran 157, and I don't remember the tenths or hundredths of a second that year, but I know it was a 157, so I plotted it as 157. Sophomore year, 2001, I ended up running 155. Again, I don't remember the tenths or hundredths of that, but I do remember it was 155. So I plotted it here as 155.00. So that's 1 minute, 55 seconds, 0.00. Here, my senior year, you can see 153, and now I remember the tenths and hundredths, and so I plotted. So that's how I've done this. That's how I've built this plot. In my video on Monday, I told you about my progression in high school. In freshman year, I ran cross country. I did not run track and field, even though a lot of people told me I should. I wanted to play soccer that spring, so I played soccer. But the following year, as a sophomore, my coach at the time, Tom Shanahan, he said, "Nick, you're just born to run middle distance. You got to come out for track and field." And I kind of said, I'll come out for track and field, but I'm only running the 2 mile. I said, I'm a distance runner at heart. I was born to run cross country, and so maybe I'll consider running the 2 mile, a few times a season. But of course, I got in the 2 mile, and then I got into a mile and loved that. And then one day, they needed a guy on the DMR to run the 800. And or was it a sprint? I don't even remember what it was back then. They needed somebody to run the 800, and no one wanted to, but considering I was a 2 miler, I thought 2 laps wouldn't be that bad, and I ended up splitting, probably too low as I recall. And that the rest is history. I was an 800 meter runner. I was hooked, and I ran it at state every single year from then on. So sophomore year, I ran 157 at state. Junior year, I ran 155 at state. And senior year, I ran 153.3 at state. You can see there's a trend there. From early on, I was trained to use periodization and to peak at the right time. Speaking of periodization, I plan on making a really in-depth video soon about what that means and how I used it to peak at the right time. As we go through these times, most of my season's best were set at championship meets, whether it was U.S. Nationals, the World Championships, or the Olympic Games. When it was time to throw down, I could throw down with the best of them. And I honestly almost always brought my best time, my season's best, in a championship setting. So that was my senior progression, as we've covered earlier. And then I went to college, right? I went to Willamette University. And my first season there was in the spring of 2003, and I have a data point for that. And look at how much time I've dropped there. I go from being a 153.3 18-year-old to a 149, 149.51 19-year-old. I mean, what a massive drop. What do I attribute that drop to? Well, come on, I went to college, I started training with better athletes, I had better coaching, I had more competition, and no surprise there, that 149.51, that came from the D3 National Championship meet. It was the fastest time I ran all season, and I won my first D3 800 title in that race. For those of you who think I'm making these times up, I know there's some doubters. We've addressed that in videos before. Here is the IAAF.org. This is, what do they call this thing? They call it a progression. This is my progression chart at IAAF.org, and it has, verified times all the way back to that race I was telling you about in 2003 in Canton, New York, when I won that title. So all of the times that I'm pulling aren't just from memory, they are from this progression chart at IAAF, and you can see progression charts for a lot of great athletes. And this is a phenomenal resource. I don't give IAAF a lot of credit because they steal money from the athletes, but in this one case, they're actually doing a pretty good job. So let's get back to the chart. Here we are, and you saw that massive drop. Now, what happened here? I was really consistently losing time, shaving time, in my 20s. But there's this anomaly. There's this anomaly in 2004 where my season's best was only 150.87. Well, it was actually due to an injury that could have derailed my entire career. That could be the last data point for the entire thing. I actually had plica underneath my kneecap, and if you've heard of those before, it's basically just a bit of tissue that sits under the knees, and they were getting inflamed constantly, and I couldn't run a step. So I took about 6 months off. From about October till February or March, I didn't run a step. Over Christmas break, I had these plica diagnosed, and I had double knee surgery as a 20-year-old. So didn't run a step until after spring break, and threw together a couple weeks of training to try to salvage the season. I wanted to go back to D3 Nats and defend my 15 and my 8 title, but I didn't have the base, so I only ran the 8, but I was still able to win my 800 title in a time of 150.87. So again, my fastest time from that season came from D3 Nats. The next year, I kind of got a full year of training under my belt. It was my junior year, and I started shaving time again. 148.82 there is my fastest time, not from a championship setting. I think I ran that at UW's track. But then again, look at we start shaving time like crazy. Senior year, this is probably the biggest jump, and there was a big jump from senior year of high school to college, but this jump from 148.82 down to 145.83, a full 3 seconds, and not just any, a full 3 seconds, and not just any 3 seconds. This is what took me from being a good collegian to a world-class runner. It also happens to be what got me my professional contract. What do I attribute that 3-second drop in time in the 800 to in just 1 year? Well, I decided that I had to figure out whether I was going to be a doctor, which is what I went to school for, or whether I was going to be a pro runner. And I've told this story multiple times before, but so if you've heard it, forgive me. But going into my senior year, I actually moved to Mexico and trained at 9,000 feet for about 12 weeks between my junior and senior year. And my plan was to go all in on running. And I did. I lost a ton of weight, and I put in more miles than I ever had. I trained with a bunch of Kenyans and learned what made them great. And I came down and just crushed every one of my PRs in everything from 8,000 meter cross country all the way down to 400 meters. I was determined to become a pro athlete. And that's exactly what I did. I ran 145.83 at the U.S. Championships there in 2006, and the rest is history. I signed a deal with Nike, ran for them for 8 years, made 2 Olympic teams, and we'll get to that here in a second on this chart. So the next year, 144.54, another big drop in time, over a second, and it gets harder and harder and harder to shave time as you approach, those world-class times. Here I dropped over a second, and I did so by winning the 2007 Prefontaine Classic, a very memorable race for me and for many here in Eugene, Oregon, when the no-name kid from D3, Nick Symmonds, beat the defending Olympic gold medal, the defending Olympic gold medalist Yuri Borzakovsky. A really special moment for me. The next year, I shaved another fraction of a second, almost half a second here, 144.10 to win the 2008 Olympic trials. I mean, you want to do something special, line up at an Olympic trial final. The amount of adrenaline, the crowd, they're going to carry you to a PR, and that's exactly what they did when I won that race. Fast forward another year, and now all of a sudden it's a down year in the sense that there's no Olympic Games. It was a World Championship year. And this time I ran 1:43.83. I actually ran right before the World Championships at Monaco. And I remember this really specifically because so many people were saying Symmonds is good, but he's a short, stocky, white kid from Idaho. He'll never break 1:44. You know, I'll eat my words if he ever breaks 1:44. And then in Monaco I did. I ran 1:43.83, and they said, okay, but he'll never break 1:43. That's one of the things about track and field fans. Not all of them, but there's a few out there that are just old, bitter jerks, and nothing's ever good enough for them, and you have to ignore them. But I was really proud of this 1:43.83. That was my season's best that year. Next year, it was a down year. There was no World Championships. There were no Olympic Games. We called a down year for us Americans because there's really no championships to train for. I was specifically training to try to run as fast as I could, and I decided to set my whole season around a race in a little town in Italy called Rieti. And the reason I did that was because Rieti is notoriously fast. And, I was getting into the portion of my contract where if I shaved time, I got really juicy bonuses. And I needed to break into a new PR to get a really nice bonus. So I said, I'm going to train for Rieti, and I'm going to crush it. I'm going to set a new personal best there. Now, it wasn't as big of a time drop as I was hoping for, but it was still a personal best, almost a tenth of a second there. 1:43.76 from Rieti in 2010. 2011, similar times. I ran 1:43.83. I believe that was at Monaco again. Again, a very fast track, very consistent. I think I ran on Monaco's track 4 or 5 times, and I think the slowest 800 I ever ran there was 1:44.0. Really incredible venue. And now we get to the good one. My personal best, the fastest time I ever ran for 800 meters, 2012. I ran 1:42.95 to I ran 1:42.95 to take 5th in the Olympic final. If you had asked me, when I was young, what I thought I could run for 800 meters, I'd have said maybe 150. Then, after I became a pro, if you asked me what I thought I could run for 800 meters, I would maybe say, 144. I never, ever thought that I would break 143, ever. I still can hardly believe I did it. 142.95 for 5th in the 2012 Olympic final. How did I do it? Well, I was fit, and I had peaked at the right time. My coach had prepared me just right. I was old enough, I was 28 years old at that time, to handle the adrenaline and the pressure of that moment, and I had a great rabbit. I had the best rabbit in the game. I had David Rudisha, and he rabbited me for 800 meters. He forgot to step off the track, but he set the world record in the race, and I'm just telling you, if you ever find yourself in a world record race, the amount of adrenaline and the pressure and everything, it can carry you along to do some pretty special things. And that's how I did it. That's how I ran 1:42.95 that day. Fastest time of my life. 3rd fastest ever by an American that day. And today I believe it's the 4th fastest ever run by an American. And the next year I was actually able to get pretty darn close. This is the year that I would say was my most consistent year. I went on to finish number 2 in the world. I won a world silver medal at the World Championships in Moscow that year. And right after Moscow, I ran a series of races, and I ran in Brussels and ran a 1:43.03, and I still don't know how I did it because I raced 5 times in 13 days after the World Championships. And this was my 5th race in 13 days. I was tired. I hadn't trained at all. I'd been drinking nearly every night. I don't recommend that, but that's what I was doing to get through the end of the season and blow off some steam. 1:43.03, still don't know how I did it. And now we have this huge gap. What happened in 2014? Well, I got injured. Really injured, actually. I had an avulsion fracture in my knee, and the doctors said that I would need to take 6 months to a year off to let it heal. And, I thought this was the end of my career, and I slipped into a really deep depression, actually. I was ranked number 2 in the world. Meet directors were offering me thousands and thousands of dollars to come race at their meets. It was the pinnacle of my career, and I couldn't run a step. And so I was really depressed, and the only way I got out of that depression was starting in a company. I was a serial entrepreneur. I'd started other businesses, and I knew that I had all this time and energy, and if I was ever going to bring this idea of a caffeinated energy gum to the market than it had to be during that time, while I still had the clout as a world-class athlete, and while I had the time and energy to actually do so. So as soon as I decided to call it the season in April of 2014, I set out to bring Run Gum to market. It took me about 5 months. We actually launched in October of 2014. Here we are, coming at you live from Run Gum HQ. We're sold in over 15,000 stores throughout the U.S. We're nationwide in Target. We have a major new partner that we're going to announce next month. We're on Amazon. It's one of those things where life is 10% what happens to you and 90% how you react to it. This could have gone down in the books as the worst year of my life. Instead, it's the best year of my life because it gave me Run Gum. So 2014 was tough from an athletic standpoint. And then you see in 2015, I was able to get back to pretty good shape. I ran 144.53, and that was at the U.S. Championships when I won my sixth, U.S. title outdoors. Yeah, it must have been my 6th outdoor U.S. title. And I had the Run Gum tattoos on my biceps, right? Because, of course, I was the CEO of the company, and I wanted to make sure that I got some really good earned media for my brand. And that was really what I would say was my last really great race. You look at 2016 and 2017, and obviously I was on the wrong side of that on the wrong side of that trajectory, and I was getting slower and slower and slower, and that's what happens when you get older. I couldn't train as hard. I was injured more. I didn't have that same pop that I had when I was younger. I saw the writing on the wall, and I said, what a wonderful career. I'm so fortunate that I got to see the bottom part of that that I got, almost 15 years here. What is it, 17 years? That can't be right. A lot of years running at an elite level, at a competitive level. I'm so proud of what I was able to do. I'm proud of this chart. Just seeing that consistency, getting better year after year after year. And not huge jumps. It's not up and down. It's very consistently getting a little bit better each year. And that's the key takeaway from this. If you're sitting at home and you're a 2:20 800-meter runner, a 2-minute 800-meter runner, or whatever you are, and you're like, well, I need to be great tomorrow, that is the wrong attitude to have. You need to say, I'm going to try to be the best runner that I can be. And I'm going to do that by consistently getting a little bit better each and every year. You look at this chart. By far, my best running was in my late 20s. 28 and 29 was when I ran my fastest times. Most runners are going to run their best years in their mid to late 20s or early 30s, and it's pretty consistent across events. At the longer distances, it might be even into your late 30s. So do not skip rungs on the ladder. Take every step as they come. You can do some big things like I did when I moved to Mexico, and you can have that 3-second drop in time, but it's risky, and I'm glad I took that risk. Be the best version of yourself you can be, and focus on getting just a little bit better each and every day. I hope you found that helpful. Maybe I'll do this with my 1,500-meter PR. I didn't run as many 15s as a pro, but it was also very consistently getting faster and faster each year. So hope you guys found that helpful. I'm really, really having fun, going back down memory lane and look at some of these times. And just doing this reminded me of at least half a dozen other really great videos that I want to make. So if you're having fun following this journey, if you're having fun and learning something, do me a favor, press the like button, press the subscribe button. I appreciate you guys. See you soon. Hey, that moment when I ran 142.95 in the London Olympics goes down as one of the highlights of my life, not just my running career. It was the culmination of over a decade of sacrifice for that 1 minute and 42 seconds. And I'm really proud of it. So I printed off these pictures, and I'm sending autographed pictures of that moment to all of my Letter Club subscribers just because I love them. It's not too late to get in on this party, but you'll need to go to letterclub.com and sign up to receive my April letter that I'm sending to all my subscribers. If you don't know what Letter Club is, I send a personalized letter to my subscribers every single month. It's inspirational, it's motivational. If you want to learn more about Letter Club, I made a video about it. I'll link that right here. But I really, really appreciate all of my Letter Club subscribers, and I try to really take care of them. In April, I'm sending them this autographed picture. So thank you to all of my Letter Club subscribers. See ya.